Here we go again. Are we live or are we not live? Go live. Now, maybe? I don't know. Are we live? Are we on? Anybody? Um, hmm. There we go. Wow, that took a while to go live. Hello, this is Wayne Belisle with this week's Profit Maximizer moment. I'm a local CPA. Been, in my fact, next year will be my 50th year as a CPA. Hard to believe. Seems like it was just last year. So my goal is I was one of the youngest CPAs to practice in Texas, and I want to become one of the oldest because I'm going to keep going as long as God says it's all right. Sorry about the dead air at the beginning. Just having trouble when kept saying the internet wasn't on. Also started my business in 1991, so this year's our 35th anniversary. So we've been doing this a long time on my own. Anyways, what we're going to talk about is something a lot of business owners just try to avoid. So, when was the last time you raised your prices on purpose? You had like a major price increase, not a little nickel and dime thing. All right. Almost all the business owners I talk to, and that's really what have dealt with for 50 plus years, has been business owners. All right. It's usually their answer is much longer than I want to admit. Why? I mean, cost went up, your expertise went up. You've been doing this a long time. I've gotten better at what I'm doing. And your best clients, if you do it right, if you structure it right, are willing to pay you. And the price, but we kept the price the same. And I've been guilty of this. All right. I'm always worried about the pricing. Okay. It just is because fear is what the problem is. All right. But think about it. If I raise my price by 10%, and I did more than that last year, all right, I averaged 25% and lost 0 clients because we did it right. Okay. That's more beyond this scope of this today's thing, but um, that went straight to the bottom line. If you increase prices, go straight to the bottom line because your cost didn't go up, your cost of goods sold didn't go up, your people didn't go up, your other expenses didn't go up. So why is, for the last 35 plus years on my own and 50 years I've been watching business owners, why are they hesitant? Well, the math makes sense. The problem is fear. All right. I'm going to raise prices and I'm going to lose a bunch of clients. So let's talk about that. In the book that I put out, the 90-day profit reset, I put a chart in there, and actually it was the flip side of why you don't want to discount. Because that's like, I need more sales, less discount. Well, if I have a 40% gross margin, which means I have my sales minus my cost of the product minus my labor, all right. If I discount by 10%, I need to increase sales by 33%. The flip side of that, though, is if I have a 40% margin and I increase by 10%, all right, I can have a sales decrease. I can lose 1 in 5 customers and make the same profit. And truthfully, my cost will probably go down because I don't need as much. I don't have as much overhead. Probably, maybe I will, but I won't have the same cost of goods sold. I'll be more efficient, have less people, or keep the same people and work better on the 80-20 rule, where I'm spending the time on the 20% of the clients that are bringing in 80% of the profits. Okay, so what's the problem? Well, okay, this is for people that sell a service, which the service industry is. People in the service industries are almost more um, equal to or more than the manufacturer and retailers. They're pretty darn close. Okay, the trap we run into, and I did it. It was we started with hourly billing. Why? Because that's the way everybody else did it. It was simple as that. Um, the only way to make more money under hourly billing is to work harder. So I was working 60, 80 hours a week, You can only do that so long. And on top of that, you can only do that so long when your income is capped by capacity. All right. You also train your clients to focus on time that it takes rather than the value of the result. That's yeah, I figured out quickly that's a loser's way to do it. Plus, I hated tracking time. So what do we do instead? All right. Well, what we did instead is we stopped billing by the hour. Everything is a fixed fee based on the complexity of the work and what we bring to the table. All right. And on the other side of the coin, especially for individual tax returns and business, if corporation tax returns, if that's all they're doing with us, I have a increase every year, a small, 5-10% increase every year, because that way it weeds out the ones that want to get the cheapest thing. I just saw a tax return totally done wrong in prior years. Of course, they paid $30. That wasn't the fee 50 years ago. All right. And it was wrong. And he paid a lot more than he should have. And well, you got what you paid for. That's what value billing is. Okay. Value billing is stop competing on price, because if I'm competing on price, I'm going to lose. All right. People call us during tax season. It's like, what's your price? And we never give them an answer. So we won't know that until we sit and talk to you and bring last year's tax return so we can look at it. A lot of them don't call back. They want the cheapest price, and we don't want them as a customer. All right. Why? Because as soon as they find somebody else cheaper, they're going to go to them. I'm trying. One of the things I teach in my classes is the lifetime value of a customer and why that's so important. Well, lifetime value of a customer depends on them coming back. All right. If all they're doing is looking for the cheapest price and somebody else goes there, that's a downhill race to the bottom, where you work harder, make less money, which is what I hear all the time. If you compete on price, you're just simply taking the wrong customers. You're taking the wrong clients. I don't care if you're selling a product. There's a way around that too. We'll discuss that in a different video. Right now, I'm kind of concentrating on the service industry. Okay. So, like I said, if you're competing on price, you're going to lose. They're going to leave you. So, what is the difference between hourly billing and value billing, which is what I do now? All right. When I do a tax return, on every invoice, let me pull one up so I can read exactly what I put on an invoice. Okay. Wow, I got small. I can't show you for sure because that client privilege. But at the bottom of every invoice, included services. So yeah, we're doing a tax return for you. And what you're buying from us to do the tax return is peace of mind. You're basically going to get, we're going to do it right. I walk through with every client that it's being looked at, worked on by one person, looked at by another person, and I finally to make sure the numbers are right. And then I look at it every single return to make sure it makes sense, that there's no logical mistakes. Plus, I educate the customer, the client, into the idea that they're part of the quality control, that we go over it with them to make sure that we haven't missed anything or they haven't forgotten to tell us something, which is usually what happens. But on every invoice, I put included services. The following items are included in the fee. Response to IRS letters. What's that again? Peace of mind. All right. What happens if I get an IRS letter? Well, we're going to be there. We're not H&R Block or Liberty or whoever else. We're going to be there 24/7 all year round. Not 24/7, but we're going to be there all year round. All right. 4 hours of IRS audit support. So if you do get audited, well, a letter audit, or which is the vast majority of audits, or a live audit, which I've seen 2 in 10 years, because we do our tax returns in a way that doesn't attract attention, you don't have to worry about it. It's included in this bill. Free dependent returns. Okay. Why do I do that? And I shouldn't probably be on the corporate return one that I'm doing. Why not? Well, it's simple. That's where a lot of problems happen. Kid gets to be 18, 19, gets a W-2, and all of a sudden jumps with H&R Block, does a tax return as if he wasn't a dependent of somebody else. So I put that in there basically for 2 reasons. One, it's easier to keep somebody out of trouble than get them out of trouble. I don't have to amend tax returns and tell the kid he owes money that the parents are going to pay anyways, 9 times out of 10. But also what happens is as the child is used to us doing tax returns, when they get to a point where they're making some money, they got out of school or they got a job, whatever, and they're making some money, we're the natural person they're going to use. Okay. And then I put 6 phone calls and 2 meetings for tax advice during the coming year. Now, I don't enforce that unless somebody's taking advantage of it. But again, the idea of, okay, it's not just a tax return we're getting here. We're getting peace of mind, yes, but I can also call them up if I'm thinking about doing something so that I get some tax advice ahead of time. That's why we're charging more for a tax return than what H&R Block charges, unapologetically, because we're offering more. It's as simple as that. All right. So again, framing the value. That's what I had to learn to sell value. These are things I always did, but I never just didn't tell the customer. Now I do. All right. And it makes it harder for them to leave. All right. Um, Always go with framing the value. And but I'm sorry, I skipped ahead of myself, but that's part one too. So the other thing is, how do you value what you do? All right. I'll give you an example. I had a guy that needed a loan. He'd gone to 3 or 4 banks and they turned him down. And this was back, you can tell by the story, this was back in the early 90s, probably before cell phones were ubiquitous. They were everywhere now. And I made a couple of phone calls and got him a loan, and then I billed him $5,000. And he goes, "You only made 2 phone calls." I said, "Here's 2 quarters, make the phone calls." I said, "I got you a $1 million loan. What's that worth to you when you got turned down 3 times?" I got my bill paid. But that's an idea of value billing. All right. Tax planning. I mean, I don't, if I build on hours, I, I would bill 1/4 of what I bill for tax planning. But if I'm cutting somebody's tax by $500,000 and sending them a bill for 20, 30, 40,000, who cares? I don't do it on a percentage because I'm not allowed to, but still I'm sending a good chunk of, and what it does too is the idea of value billing. Now I'm explaining to them that I'm saving them on taxes and we're doing the coaching and helping them grow their business. So now we're a profit center, not an expense. All right. Um, Package your items. I don't do that. We have 3 packages that we're now switching everybody to that pays us monthly. Another thing I saw with that is even though we're raising prices to sell the package, it says it right there. This includes the 2026 tax increase. I mean, sorry, fee increase, which we'll keep the same for 27, but then we'll look at it again in 28. We're upfront about it, unapologetic about it too, to be honest about it. So I always like the good, better, best. The good one basically takes what they're doing now and increases it for the price increase, usually enough to cover 2 years what I would do for a price increase. Not always. Depends on the client and how much work it is. You can't cookie cutter everybody. All right. But also has a middle one, which includes tax planning, doing financial statements, sitting down with them at least twice a year and going over the financial statement, analyzing their business, comparing it to competitors. I might even put in the course that we're putting together. I don't know. Probably not. I'm going to probably keep that separate. But you see what happens. Now, here's good. You're already doing this. Here's something a little better. And then I have like a CFO hold your hands type thing. And we're going to, that one I haven't sold a lot of, but I'm tweaking that and getting ready to really push that. Um, anyways, I lost my place. So pricing the package is the thing. So what has happened? Well, I take somebody who's paid me $2,500 and moved them to paying 750, $1,000, $1,100 a month. Big change, but value, always selling value. So, what do you need to do to raise prices? Well, talk to your customer. I got one. Well, I was supposed to meet him today, but he had to postpone till next week. Haven't raised his price, and I look back, it's embarrassing. I hadn't raised his price in a while. I want to say 7 years. Conversation is going to be easy. I haven't raised your price, and now I've got systems in place. Now we're going to look at everybody every 2 years as we shift them to this plan. So that won't happen again. Yeah, that's the thing about business. You learn. All right. So the conversation's easy. I haven't raised your price in a while. Our costs have gone up. We've gotten better at our job. Here's our new price. All right. Here's what, that's part one. Part two is to frame the value. Here's what's expanded and what we do since we started working with you, since the last time we did this. Here's the result of what we did last year. All right. Concentrate on value. All right. And then make it easy to say yes. This rate, I usually tell them I'm going to start it next month, or I'm going to start it in June or July. I usually try to start them in June or July. So if I see them in, unless I'm doing an extension and I see them in October, well, I'm going to start it now. I'll start it in November. So it gives them a little bit of time to adjust. It makes it easy. I've not really had anybody say no. Now, I have had pushback. I've had one say, can you bring that fee down a little bit? Yes, but I'm going to take one service away. Yeah, I can do that, but I won't be able to do this. And then about half the time they go, yeah, but I want that. Okay, we'll stick with the fee. The other half, okay, if I'm not doing as much work, never lower your quote, especially unless you're going to adjust what you're going to do for them. So this went a little longer than I intended. Sorry about that. Pricing is the fastest lever in your business. It's the quickest way to increase your bottom line. All right, so use it. Too many owners are afraid to touch it. The ones who do and do it on purpose and do it with intention and concentrating on the value to the client work fewer hours. We are. I amazing as a CPA firm. We have not worked overtime this year, even during tax season, and we won't through the end of the year. All right. I hired a little bit more help. That's part of it. But even last year, before I had the help, as a firm, we had less than 40 hours of overtime for the whole year. If you know CPAs, that's not normal. All right. So if you don't need more clients, you just need to get paid what you're worth. So look at especially if you're in the service industry. If you're in retail, different conversation. We'll bring that up at another time. But right now, look, this is where it's at. So if you haven't really looked at your pricing model, even if you are in retail or something, and you can feel the margins slipping, you're making less money working harder, um, love to have a conversation with you. Set up a profit clarity call. Go to waynebelisle.com/clarity, CLARITY. And love to talk to you, see if we can help you. No charge for that. I like to help people. So, and if we can work together, that's great. If not, well, that's great too. I mean, I talk to people. That's what I do. I always joke I built this firm 1 free hour at a time. Man, this has gone long. Didn't think it would go over 10 minutes. So what do I know? I start talking. I never shut up. Hey, until next time, this is Wayne Belisle saying, let's make this our most profitable year ever. God bless. Have a great weekend. See you in church. Take care. Bye.